Hello, you're gonna have to forgive me. There's a lot of noise in the background. They're cutting down some trees and pruning and that sort of thing in the background with a big wood chipper. But this is a bit of a pilgrimage today, and I'm going to dedicate today to my English teacher in high school, Miss Edith Montgomery, and also to a former student of mine, Rosie Chalada, because they both come into play today and both very much on my mind. So I come up here today to visit the homes, I should say plural, of Sylvia Plath, the American poet. And she lived up there where you see the three windows together on the top there, at the very top of the picture at the moment. She lived there with Ted Hughes back the year before I was born, and this is where she was very happy with Ted Hughes. Ted Hughes being the British laureate, so the official royal poet, and you might know him from the Iron Man and things like that. But Sylvia Plath was a very, very influential poet. Particularly, I remember going to university, and the first time I'd come across her, because several of the girls I can remember in particular were very much into her, saw her as a feminist figure, and certainly she had a lot of imagery, feminist imagery in her poetry. She wasn't terribly happy with Ted Hughes. He used to beat her by, from what I understand, and they left this apartment up at the top here after a bit. You got to forgive the noise, sorry, and moved to Devon with the two children. And a lot of her early work, well, certainly her work in the early 60s was here. Now, while she was here, she decided that she was going to had her eye on a house that's down the road here, and this area is quite important to me because my daughter was married at a church just up the road here, and also my granddaughter was christened, baptized in the same church just up the road at St. Mark's. So when they left here, and this area is called Chalcott Square, and Chalcott Farm used to be here back in the 1700s, and Chalcott Farm became Chalk Farm, as we all know, but the area is considered Primrose Hill today. So we left Sylvia's Plath's house there, and we moved down the street here, not too far, and again, forgive the noise, luckily we're getting away from the noise now. But I mentioned earlier that Edith Montgomery had been my teacher in high school. I grew up in a very small town where poetry really wasn't the thing. You played American football. This was how you were judged as to sort of what tribe you belonged to. And I can remember having an interest in poetry, and it was through Miss Montgomery that this became sort of a lifelong thing. And I've always been interested in poetry since. She started us off gently with E.E. Cummings and with D.H. Lawrence's The Snake. And I remember clearly that line in The Snake, Etna rising in iron pajamas for the heat, because on honeymoon I got to go to Mount Etna. And certainly that line of that poem and learning that was going through my mind. I also wanted to talk about Rosie today. Rosie was a student that I had very early in my career. And when I was teaching year 6, so 10 and 11 year olds, she was fascinated by poetry and a very good poet as well. And I can remember vividly reading her stuff and encouraging her to keep writing. And a few years after she left and went to high school, secondary school, she invited me up to her house to celebrate her birthday. And I always, she said at the time, what an influence I'd had on her, and that's always nothing more rewarding for a teacher than for a student to say that you've influenced me, you've had an impact. So I took Rosie for a present. I took her a copy of Sylvia Plath's book, Ariel, collected poems, and I gave her to that as a gift. Unfortunately, about 7 years ago, we lost Rosie to cancer. And my condolences to her family and all her loved ones. And I know she had many friends from that class who still stayed in touch with her. But unfortunately, we lost Rosie. But today I'm thinking of her as we retrace Sylvia Plath's steps because she used to come down to this road from where she lived, because there's a house here that was the childhood home of William Butler Yeats, Yeats being the famous Irish poet, and he would have lived here in the 1800s in this greenish house just here, and you see the blue plaque. Now Sylvia Plath, when she split up with Ted Hughes, she never divorced them, but they split up because the person who came in and they rented, excuse the noise again, the person they rented the other house to, it that we'd just been to, he started an affair with her and ended up staying with her for quite a while. But Sylvia moved back from Devon, moved into here with her 2 children, and she wrote, most of Ariel was written in this house here. She used to write quite proficient. She used to write a lot. She used to write a lot. And if you see, we're up there, you see the windows are blocked up on the 2nd floor. Unfortunately, she was a tormented soul, and she one day got up, sealed all the windows, and stuck her head in the oven. And the children were in the flat at the time as well, which was a bit terrible. Later on, her son committed suicide as well, and her daughter Frida is still an artist now. Now, when they were going to put a blue plaque up, they were going to put it here originally, but Frida said no, she wanted it at the other house, and the reason being because Sylvia Plath lived at the other house, but she died here, she said. The last poem that Sylvia Plath wrote before she died was called Edge, and she wrote that just a few days before she died, and I'll just finish by reading an excerpt from that. You have to forgive me, I'm just a bit wobbly here. The woman is perfected. Her dead body wears the smile of accomplishment. The illusion of a Greek necessity flows in the scrolls of her toga. Her bare feet seem to be saying, "We have come so far. It is over."